Welcome to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, where we talk about historical drama series and films as windows to the past and mirrors of the present. I'm Michon Boston.
And I'm Tequina Boston. Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters celebrates the 250th anniversary of the iconic English author Jane Austen's birth, with a three-part miniseries, Jane Austen Adapted. In this final installment in the miniseries, Michon and I talk with award-winning author Vanessa Riley, who recounts her role as the historical and cultural consulting producer for the 2024 Hallmark Channel's adaptation of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. We ask Vanessa about how she was introduced to Jane Austen and talk about the importance of historical accuracy and cultural sensitivity in the Hallmark Channel's adaptation of Austen's novel, which features a multiracial cast. Vanessa Riley also shares her approach in writing her historical novels, Queen of Exiles and Island Queen, which are based on the lives of Marie-Louise Christophe, Haiti's only queen, and Dorothy Doll Kirwan Thomas, a formerly enslaved woman who became a wealthy entrepreneur in the Caribbean in the 1800s, attracting the attention of Prince William, the future King of England.
Sense and Sensibility tells the story of the Dashwood sisters, the steady and prudent Eleanor, and the romantic and impulsive Marianne. The sisters, along with their mother Mary and younger sister Meg, are left destitute after the death of their father. Their half-brother from a previous marriage and his wife assume ownership of their father's grand house and its contents because of a law that limits the transfer of property to a male heir. Mary Dashwood and her daughters are forced to find a modest, affordable home, and one is generously provided by a cousin. This new situation brings Eleanor and Marianne romantic possibilities, but also disappointments that change their perceptions about love and the need for security. The Hallmark Channel's Sense and Sensibility cast includes Deborah Ayurende as Eleanor, Bethany Antonia as Marianne, Susan Lawson Reynolds and Julian Firth as Mary and Henry Dashwood, Beth Angus as Meg, Dan Janot as Edward, Akil Laji as Colonel Brandon, and Victor Hugo as Willoughby.
Our guest, Vanessa Riley, is an award-winning author of over 25 novels. Her stories spotlight hidden narratives of Black women and women of color, emphasizing power, sisterhoods, and family sagas across historical fiction, romance, and mystery genres. With a doctorate from Stanford University and other engineering degrees from Penn State, Vanessa brings a research-oriented approach to her inclusive storytelling about Caribbean, Georgian, and Regency eras. 3 of her novels are based on true stories about extraordinary women. They include Island Queen, Queen of Exiles, and Sister Mother Warrior,
Akil
a story
Laji
about
as
the
Colonel
Haitian
Brandon,
Revolution,
and
based
Victor
on
Hugo
the true life story of the
Willoughby.
first Empress of Haiti, Marie-Claire Bonheur,
And I don't know
and
if
Victoria
Akil Largi
Grantoya
or
Mantou,
Largi.
a West African-born warrior who
stop.
helped lead the rebellion that drove out the French and freed the enslaved people of Haiti. Vanessa's next novel, Fire, Sword, and Sea, based on the legendary 17th century female pirate of the Caribbean, Jacquot de la Haye, is scheduled for release in January 2026.
Welcome, Vanessa, to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters.
Well, thank you, ladies, for having me.
Well, Vanessa, Michon and I met you at the Jane Austen Society of North America annual general meeting in Baltimore, which coincided with the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. And you gave a very insightful talk that was called Jane Austen Through My Brown Eyes. And let me just say, there were points in your talk where I had like a lump in my throat and I could feel the tears forming in my eyes. How did you become acquainted with Jane Austen? What's your origin story with Jane? And what's been the impact she's had for you personally as a reader and as a novelist, a writer?
My origin story, I always have to blame my parents and my mother. She made sure her 4 children were readers. So from very early age, we're getting Baldwin and Shakespeare, Thoreau. And, a lot of times it's like, "Okay, great. More stuff mom wants us to read, whatever." And we get to Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, "This woman is witty and funny, and I get it." And it was just such a wonderful treat. And then I get to Sanditon. And then so my mother's the literature woman, my father's the storyteller. So I'm the only girl, so he's telling me these stories about women rising up and empowering battles in the West, in the Caribbean, and all these sorts of things. And then you get to Sanditon, where the richest woman of marriageable age is Miss Lamb, a mulatto woman, and it was like these worlds make sense to me now in a greater way. We always wanna say we wanna maybe be part of the story, or we want to, feel ownership of that, like, I have a piece of this dream, and great literature makes you really want that, but there are sometimes forces that says, "No, this is not for you." You can't relate. And the thing is, no, we're human. There's a human experience and all these sorts of things. And Jane captures it every time. So very witty, so very just a little she like throws little bombs and things like this and just
Mhm.
blows up perspectives. I have a friend who was talking about she is the originator of the humbling of the hero in a story, where the groveling, because is if he's going to humiliate the heroine at some point, like Darcy in that ballroom, then he's gonna grovel big double, triple time. So there's so many things we enjoy that are centric to or created by Jane. And I think that's why we keep talking about her over and over and over. 250 years, everybody would love that kind of legacy. And she's been that for me.
Yeah, yeah, and you pulled out a couple of sentences from her novels that made me say, "Oh, I gotta go back and read that and find that sentence."
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
How would you define wit? Because that's something that I think only people who read books, only book readers use wit.
Yes. It's more than intelligence, right? Because anybody can be smart, but there's a way that you can say something so that it's poignant and funny, kinda snarky sometimes. It's just it's a perfectly balanced statement to me. And Jane is an expert at this. That's why, we quote so many lines from Jane because they're just so balanced and they expose some part of mankind or womankind that is just right below the surface, and now, of course, I'm drawing a blank on the most famous line about a man of great fortune, must be in want of a wife,
Yeah.
right? And there's a reversal there, right? It's a woman needing a husband because during particularly these times, that's your identity. That is your socioeconomic boundings is all gonna be tied up in this marriage. Um, but she calls it out right then and there. Snarky, witty. I mean, to me, that's Jane, and I love that. I hope to embody that in my dialogue or in those throwaway or takeaway lines from any novel that I'm writing.
Yeah, and what's funny is that sometimes the people she's making that comment about, that wit would go right over their heads. They would have no idea that she was actually talking about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would say my mom could cut you and you wouldn't bleed for like 2 more days.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Until you hear someone in the background go, "Oh, snap."
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So you were a historical consultant and cultural consultant for Hallmark's Sense and Sensibility with its multiracial cast. How did the producers find you for that production? Tell us that origin story.
Yes. So, the head producer, Tony Judkins, was with Hallmark. She was over the Mahogany Line. And at one point, she was looking for new property. So she was setting up meetings with um, everybody who was writing, rom commies, kind of historical kind of pieces, etc. And so a number of my friends had a meeting, and they went really well, and so I had a meeting with her, and we started talking about my novels, and then she just kind of out of the blue, she's like, "If I had my druthers, I would do Sense and Sensibility. I think it hasn't been done enough. And what do you think about that?" I was like, "That sounds great." She's like, "What about in Philadelphia?" I was like, "Yeah, that could happen." Vanessa's eyes are bulging really bigly. There are some historical things you could kind of, but you have to take great imagination to do it. And then I got thinking about Hallmark doing a period accurate historical. I'm like, okay, girl, you get this. Call me. I'd love just to be on the set, just to watch. I want to see this, right? Hence, 2 years later, she sold this project, got everybody on board at Hallmark, got a wonderful producer, Roger Bob, to who's done several, Hallmark movies. He was the producer. Tia Smith was the executive producer. Kara San off of Project Runway was the costume designer, and Kim Kimble, Beyonce's hairdresser, and a wonderful woman, that's the core team. And so my responsibility is, how do we make sure that what everyone sees on screen is as historically accurate as possible, is culturally relevant, in the pieces that need to be culturally relevant, and make sure that people don't say, "Oh, look, they're just dressing up," and they didn't take anything seriously. Everybody was very serious. There's aspects to Regency, the way people sit at the dining room table, what's on the dining room table. Order of precedent. That's the only thing I did not win on. The star always gets order of precedent when entering a room. I'm just gonna let everybody know that. Normally, it would be titles or age, order when you enter a room. Nope, the star always gets the entrance. That's a battle you will not win. Um, but with Bridgerton, and Bridgerton's great piece, but it is Netflixed Bridgerton, from that perspective. So they made the option that women were not gonna wear bonnets outdoors. Women always wore bonnets outdoors. Gloves, hats, there are levels of, formality when you walk into a room, or even if you're sitting in a room, and then there's who can be alone with you in a room having these discussions kind of thing. I was able to bring those kind of cultural aspects to the movie in ways that wasn't obtrusive, that still showcased whatever the scene was supposed to be getting, but yet would be within these contemporary norms. Because, to be honest, when you take a mostly Black cast to do Sense and Sensibility, you're gonna get some arrows from folks who don't wanna be overtly racist, but want to assume you did not take the time to study the material, to honor Jane as best as you could, given the 84-minute format that you have to do for this movie. If you're a Janeite, I made sure we put in things that, you will love. Like, now, even though I found out from the conference, the Rice picture is in dispute, whether it is Jane, not Jane, it's there. There's little vignettes of you will see, portraitures of Jane. But then, to help people understand why Black folks have a place in this world, I was working with a great, team, in Bulgaria, and they wanted to use AI to make family portraits because, you go into any of these homes, they're gonna be these huge family portraits. And I was like, "Why don't we use actual people who were during this time frame?" So you have Alexander Dumas, you've got, the Black Prince of Italy, of Florence, actually, on the wall. We have, cultural icons of that day, from war heroes to writers. We made sure they were part of the narrative in the scenery scape. So slow the movie down, take a look at the walls. You will get an education, and you'll see why Black people actually have a spot in this world. even from the whole story, when you think of Sense and Sensibility, you have a man who has a second marriage. If someone is marrying, particularly, let's say she's from the islands, she is Caribbean, mulatto, etc. She's going to be coming with money. These types of marriages do not have, like, there might be the love, but let's get real, boys and girls. It's a money transaction, marriages during this time frame. So she's coming with money, and her money probably paid the taxes on the estate. They probably fixed up the estate. But because she may have been very impetuous in marrying, the mother, Mary, uh, she may not have had a legal contract that stipulates this is your property after marriage. This is what your widow's dower is going to be, the money you're supposed to live on. So that's why it's very easy for the firstborn son, primogenitor, takes precedence. If there's nothing specked out, he's going to get the loot. He's going to get everything. And then he gets to say how much his stepmother is going to be afforded. So you get a double hit, if that's in my head, my writer head. That's how we get this world of a mixed race family, of a son, not treating his stepmother and his stepsisters well in transaction, to follow the story of Sensibility. It adds an extra layer because now you think about the Fanny and everybody coming in and looking at your china that you may have financed, and those curtains you paid for, and that landscaping that you helped upkeep, but because you don't have your legal documents in order, because you married for love, you're screwed. It's
Yeah.
it's it's it's
Truly,
it's a
truly.
perfect scenario.
True then, true now.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so it's of all the stories, that's a great one to do, and to bring in these other characters and to bring in all these nuances. So I love it. I hope people go buy it, uh, view it. Sensibility on Hallmark. It was very well done. Everything, every aspect. It was shot in Bulgaria and Ireland so that you get that European feeling of the homes, of the estates. I mean, it was masterful.
It also appeared that Fanny was also the child in a second marriage as well.
Mhm.
So I
Yes.
thought that was smart and interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you're pointing to your head. That was your idea. Great
Yeah.
idea.
I
Yeah.
One of my tasks was how do we make this authentic? And because of the relationships, because, her brothers are not mixed race. Her
Right,
brothers
right,
are Caucasian. She has to be second marriage. It also makes sense of why, the stepmother can control the fortune, says, "Edward, you're not getting any money." If the money had come from Edward's actual father, there's nothing she could do to change that because he's
right.
the firstborn son, he inherits everything. It's her money, Mrs. Farrar's money coming from her prior marriage. So she gets to dictate which of her children gets what. So to me, that makes sense, and because it's the only way you can get there, for a mother to disinherit her son from the money that's coming from their bloodline. So you gotta mix and match. So that was part of my one of my roles was how do we get to where we are and to explain everything and the subtle changes in dialogue, etc., to make sure that every story is accounted for.
I think that is why it's important to bring writers in on the production because writers are not looking at this as non-traditional casting. They want, or we, you, and others want these relationships, these connections to make sense and historical sense as well. I mean, what you described is fantastic. Now I have to look at it again and see how those background stories play out in
Exactly.
the film. I do want to make a little note in the film. There was something about Colonel Brandon and Eleanor. There was a little energy there. Do you see a persuasion coming up?
First of
Yeah.
all, both actor and actress, they were phenomenal, but it was hilarious. This is the first time some of the actors were reading Sensibility. They're like, "Why doesn't she get with Brandon?" I don't know. He's wonderful. He's saving the family. He's saving your sister. I don't actually know. I couldn't answer that.
But those
Jane,
two
I don't
could do a
understand.
persuasion. I can see a
Yeah.
persuasion with those
Oh,
The
two.
energy
never
was
mind.
there. If Hallmark wants to do persuasion, cast those
Let's
two.
put that in there because they were amazing. They
Yeah,
were
they
amazing.
had an energy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. You can see the chemistry there.
I love that. Deborah and Akil were amazing folks. So,
Yeah.
yes.
You've been enjoying Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, a podcast where we talk about historical drama films and series as windows to the past and mirrors of the present.
Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share the excitement with your friends. Visit MichonBostonGroup.com/Boston Sisters. Join the historical drama community by signing up for our e-newsletter so you'll never miss an update, future episodes, or exclusive bonus content.
Now, back to our fascinating conversation. So, you write historical fiction, you write historical romance, and you write historical thrillers. And our podcast focuses on the historical fiction dimension because we're always looking at the adaptations, whether it's from nonfiction or fiction. You have two novels that Michon and I are in the midst of reading right now, uh, Queen of Exiles and Island Queen,
Mhm,
both crossing over that Austen period, the Regency, into the Victorian era.
mhm.
How did you discover these extraordinary women? Marie-Louise Christophe, Haiti's one and only queen, and entrepreneur Dorothy Dolly Kirwan Thomas.
Okay. So I go back. This is once again my father. My father's telling me these stories, right? So he's telling me bits and pieces of this very rich fabric of Caribbean history stretching all the way from Haiti. My father's from Trinidad and Tobago, the whole gambit. And, most Americans want to say it's a beach and some. No, every one of those islands are so different with different cultures, different formations. Some are more French, some are more Spanish, some are Dutch. And so that's kind of a background. But then I'm also a collector. So as I'm searching for something, I firmly believe if you find anything of interest, screenshot that bad boy. You will never find it again.
That's true.
Ever, ever, ever.
Yes.
And so one time I am looking at cartoons, political cartoons, drawings of the time frame. And there is this particular cartoonist. He is very popular, but he's slightly ist. You put anything you want to do, misogynist, racist, you put all them ist, that boy is this guy, right? Very famous cartoonist. And he doesn't, I think, like women because whenever he draws women in his cartoons, they're always the joke of the piece.
Mm.
So they're garish or ugly or there's a size issue about them. There's something wrong with every woman he draws. But I find this one cartoon and it is of Prince William, who will become, not at the time frame, who will become King William the Fourth. He's a sailor king. He's has a frigate, and he and his sailors are all the way in the Caribbean. But this cartoon portrays him lying in a hammock, embracing a Black woman, and it's a very loving posture of him holding her. And the woman is drawn beautifully. It's when I realize she's not the joke this time in the piece. She's the tattle. This is what your prince is doing in the West Indies. So I knew there was some truth there, but I didn't have an idea of the story. And then my father has told me all these crazy bits and pieces of stories. Half of them are true. Okay. Half of them were trying to just get me to go to bed, but half of them are true. I start digging and, one pro tip for anybody out there who's doing historical research, follow the most documented person to find those other pieces of their life. Uh,
Mm.
Prince William is very well documented. His time in the Caribbean, very well documented. Matter of fact, he and his boys partied so hard one night that they actually break a brothel. I'm not quite sure how you break a brothel, but they broke it. And they had to pay, and he pays the next day for all of these things. But so he's a party animal. And so by the time he gets to the island of Dominica, all of his boys are writing back saying he's different. He's with that woman again. And then I find one letter that says he's dancing with Dorothy Kirwan at the Mulatto Balls. So all of these islands would host the Navy. All the Navy's coming in, and these men are looking for entertainment, looking for companionship, so they would have a ball. And they would have the mixed race or lighter skinned women would come to these balls, hence the mulatto balls, and people would partner up. Now, Dorothy was not light skinned, or she wasn't in that image of light skin, but she had some sort of energy or zest about her that she was the most gorgeous thing anybody have ever saw, which it as we look at these histories, most of the time, mulatto women have these kind of powers. Dorothy
Yeah.
was mulatto, but she was not very fair. Everybody says she is, darker complected, browner skinned, etcetera. But she is phenomenal, and she is phenomenal everywhere she meets, whether she's poor, she's rich. Men are on her like ticks on a dog. And Prince William actually sneaks her in his spoiler alert, sneaks her in his frigate back to England. And to me, that's one of the most interesting things because she has the money to buy her own passage. She doesn't have to go back to sneak into England this way, but she wants to go because he's taking her in his very grand boat. So there are these stories which are completely opposite from everything that we know of. Most people have a picture of the American version of enslavement, and enslavement in any form is horrible. Please never, when I find these other stories, I don't want anybody to ever think that there is an easy version of enslavement. Enslavement is horrible. It ruins families. It changes destinies. But there are some people like Dorothy who overcame it. Dorothy, at early age, she buys the freedom of her entire family from her own money, and then goes on building businesses across the West Indies. And when she's in Dominica, that's when she meets Prince William, and they launch this very grand affair. Finding her was amazing, and literally, it was just following the trails of little bits here, little bits here. There's always some truth in something, and so particularly be watchful, guys, when you see pieces in history, take your phone out, take those pictures because you just never know when you'll be able to repiece all these pieces together, and I feel very fortunate to be able to do that for Dorothy Kirwan Thomas.
Yeah, I was also inspired to go back to Florence and see if I could find the grave of Marie-Louise, but she's in
Pisa.
Pisa.
He's in
But
Pisa.
even like
Go to Florence because
you,
Florence is amazing.
yeah, but you give this sense of like tracing pathways of these women's lives that I could see, people like creating their own kind of like pilgrimages to follow their lives through these various places where they went to and where they were located.
Mhm. When I started doing the final bits of research for Queen of Exiles, we had just gotten out of COVID and, because at one point I wanted to go to actually Haiti. I wanted to see the Palace Sensui. It's in ruins, but to just kind of stand there. And then to go up to the Citadel, which is the eighth wonder of the world. And people are still confused on how it was built by these folks that are just, they've only been free for like maybe 10 years. They're building this legendary thing. And, you know, in Bridgerton, they make Queen Charlotte, um, they come up with a reason why you have these integrated families and whatnot. You could have used Marie-Louise and King Henri because they have this wide kingdom. And they have ducels, which are dukes. They have the different princes of they created this peerage because King Henri believed that for the rest of the world to accept Haiti into the Brotherhood of Nations, they had to look just like the rest of the nations. So he believed in they have kingdoms, we need to have kingdoms. And he was actually very successful in keeping France away by building these partnerships with London, with the Russians, etc. But you have this wonderful queen, but the kingdom falls.
Yeah.
And she has to create a new life in London. And I wanted to get that feeling of like everything that still stands in Haiti, they built. And your kingdom has fallen and you're going into exile. And I know in the back of your head is like, what is going to remain? What is going to be here? And then you go to Florence and they have 400, 200-year-old buildings that are still, that are there. That feeling that there's still hope. We built something that's going to stand. I could feel that. And then she becomes a builder just like her husband. And she and her daughters build that chapel. You have to go to Pisa. It's beautiful. It's big. And she and her two daughters, that's where they lay to rest. Um, so it's like we have these pieces of history. I found this story because I was watching a sanctioned documentary on Queen Louise, but the person who was talking about her was talking about that she was poor. It was like a little snippet. She was poor and she was exiled and alone in London. And then the very next day, I'm seeing a dedication to these blue plaques of these houses she owned in London. One is off Marylebone Street, which is in the most expensive part of London, Mayfair. And then I actually got to go in to her house and in Hastings. So Hastings has this beautiful seacoast, and there's these set of houses. Actually, we rented cars, and we drove there. It was like 4 hours to get there, whatnot. And we get there in the middle of the day, and this very cute little couple see these Americans looking around their patio and stuff like that, and they let us in the house, and they had restored everything. So you could walk on the pine floors. It still had that little bit of give and bounce. I was able to touch the banister, and I know just walking up, and she touched this. And then you go into the living room, and there's the house is up on a hill. You could see the sea. When she and Henri were first married, that was their first house in Santo Domingo. It was right there. You could see the sea. So I could just imagine how happy she was and how that made her feel just to be able to wake up and go have her morning coffee and look out at that water. It's just gorgeous. But once again, that's some expensive property. There is no way a woman without any means is going to have these houses. The goodness and the kindness of strangers is not going to work to that level. People are kind, people are good, but not to that level of opulence. And then through research, she was able to rebuild his fortune. There was things in transit when he died, payments that weren't made. She was able to work with the banks. She got money. And then she and her daughters went on the European tours. So every summer they would go to Baden-Baden, where people would it's kind of like a spa town, and they would do all these natural healings and whatnot, and just both rich folks partying. But that's a whole nother story. Right? But to find all this life that she was living, but for people to assume based on the color of her skin that she had a limited social life without doing any research. Because I'm an engineer by trade, gang. I just looked in the databases and I saw the newspaper clippings. She was probably one of the most media-stalked royals ever. And the truth is there. But no one cares to put together the facts to give you a story of what happened. I feel very fortunate that I've been able to find these different pieces, and I feel very honored to bring them back to us because we need them. We need to see what people have done, because I think no matter how hard we think our lives are, they had a lot harder. And I think they found success. So I think we can find success no matter the circumstances we're in. And I just want to do honor by bringing them back to our lexicon. We should know these women. We should.
Yeah,
They should be part of our stories.
And they're so important too because you get a sense of your own possibility by knowing what other people have accomplished. And if you don't ever see yourself in that history, you have no idea what's possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think we get enough history of Haiti, and I think that's part of the reason is because they did get their independence through a slave rebellion.
Exactly. You think about it. The
Yeah.
one country in North America that abolished enslavement before anybody else,
Yeah.
that defeated world powers, um, had to pay for their freedom. You know, it's hard for me to look at the Statue of Liberty knowing that it was financed from the interest payments that they kept charging Haiti. That debt wasn't paid off until, like, the 1970s.
Yeah.
So, instead of buying roads and investing in schools, they were paying European powers. That's why Haiti is where it is today. And if anybody out here picks up Queen of Exiles, I want you to see the possibilities of what they could have been if the world of nations had embraced them instead of trying to punish them for wanting freedom.
We see so much potential for your stories, your books to be turned into a film or series. And you know, this podcast is focused on historical drama,
Mhm,
films, and series.
mhm,
Now, we've all witnessed the impact of Julia Quinn's novels as they've been adapted into Bridgerton. We've seen some impact for Jill Hornby's Miss Austen novel for a series,
mhm.
and she's been on our podcast, by the way. And of course, Jane Austen. Can't leave her out. All her novels. She's brought in new audiences, new readers.
Mhm.
We've also heard that one of your novels may be coming to the screen. What can you share with our audience? What can you share with us about
Um,
that at this time?
there are current negotiations happening, and, that's all I can say. The Island Queen was originally optioned before it was even published, so it was a
Mm.
year out before it was published. Longboat Productions and Sony International came on board, but then we ran right into the writer's strike.
Oh,
And
yes.
that slowed down so much production of just about everything. So the option fell out. But, this is Island Queen we are going to see on that screen. So there's some really great discussions that are happening now. That's all I can say. But
We understand. We
I'm
understand.
very, very excited. I believe we're going to see it. And I might actually be helping a little bit with some writing of it. So that's all I'm saying. Everybody keep hope alive.
Yeah, always keep hope alive, and we hope that when that day comes, you'll come back on Historical
I
Drama
will. We're
with
gonna
the
have to have the
Boston
popcorn
Sisters.
review system where
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Vanessa, thank you for joining us on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing your next novel, and listeners will definitely be updated about your next book and the books that we mentioned in this podcast.
Wonderful. And Boston ladies, thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting you at the conference. Thank you for all that you do. And just this has just been fun. So thank you.
The Hallmark Channel's Sense and Sensibility is available for streaming. Do a search to find streaming, rental, and purchase options. You can purchase the novels Island Queen and Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, and other books related to the Jane Austen adapted miniseries from our affiliate bookstore. Go to our webpage at michonbostongroup.com/Boston Sisters to find the bookstore link. A link is also included on the webpage for this podcast, episode number 82.
Enjoy all our Jane Austen adapted podcasts, including episodes 80 and 81, featuring our conversations with Alden O'Brien, costume historian and curator of costumes and textiles at the Daughters of the American Revolution Museum in D.C. We talk with Alden about Regency and Federal style and fashion in England and the U.S., and about costumes in 3 adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, including the upcoming Netflix series, based on a first look photo.
Our Jane Austen adapted miniseries wraps up our podcast year for 2025. You can enjoy past episodes of historical drama with the Boston sisters while we take a winter break. Tequina and I will be back in January 2026 with new and exciting podcasts, including a special series, Revolution to Rights, that will feature historical dramas and biopics that tell the continuing stories of revolution and social movements in U.S. history to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence.
Before we sign off for 2025, we want to express appreciation to our Buy Me a Coffee supporters and those who make purchases through our affiliate bookstore, and to the entire Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters community. Thank you for listening. We wish you all the best for the holiday season and the new year.
Thank you for catching this episode of Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of captivating historical films and series dramas. Find us on Instagram at Historical Drama Sisters and on Facebook at Historical Drama Boston Sisters.
We want to hear from you. What historical dramas are you watching? Share your favorites. We may feature them in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Visit our website at michonbostongroup.com/Boston Sisters and share the podcast with fellow historical drama enthusiasts.
Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters is brought to you by the Michon Boston Group. The views and opinions expressed on Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters are those of the speakers and do not represent the positions or views of the Michon Boston Group, its clients, or affiliates. This is Michon Boston.
And this is Tequina Boston.
Thank you for listening.